Hey, kids, and welcome to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology, and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox, coming at you for the big week. It's the big kahuna moment in the month of July, July 17th through 23rd. It's officially heating up once again. But first, a question. I loves me questions, kids. And it's so funny because there's literally been a rhythm. I love this, though. There's been a rhythm where every week I get like one question.
That's perfect.
And so there's no backlog of questions. Like there's just such a backlog of dreams, kids. If you sent your dream in, please understand there's a backlog. But I've been getting the questions on a weekly basis. And here is one from Kaylin. Kaylin says, hi, I just have a question for you if you have time to answer it on the show sometime. Well, here's that time, Kaylin. I have recently felt the call to relocate to a different area of the country. My question is, do you find value in astrocartography in choosing a place to live? Thank you, and thanks for all the wonderful light-filled content you put out. Oh, you're welcome, Caleb. Thank you for the kind words. So, astrocartography is a way of looking at the energy of the moment of your birth as it relates to the geography of the Earth itself. So everybody understands about your natal chart is a map of where the planets were in a kind of horizontal way, like from Earth out. In the horizon of us, the planets align and they make angles and they interact with each other. But the planets move up and down as well. There's this flat thing we call the ecliptic, which is this imaginary plane in which the planets sit. And it's not really a flat plane because the whole system is dynamic and spiraling through space, creating time as we go. But there is this imaginary plane that the planets sit on. And there's like a midpoint that's considered the middle of this plane, and planets can go above and below this sort of imagined flat midpoint in something called declination. So a declination expression would be whether a planet is above this imaginary horizon, below the imaginary horizon, and then planets can interact with each other in this parallel kind of sensibility. And that's the energy that generates the astrocartography lines around the planet, lines of energy that each different planet creates. And you can look at this in map form. Plug in your birth information and you look at the map and you can create a visual of the places on the planet where certain energies are going to vibrate more readily if you go there. Like, have you ever been somewhere, Zoe, that you traveled to and you just said, wow, I feel really good here. It's a good vibe here.
Absolutely.
Right. That phenomenon may very well be a reflection of you being in a place that these lines of energy that go around the Earth when you take your first breath say to you, well, that area of the planet, a particular planetary energy from the solar system will vibe with you more. So like if your Jupiter line crosses, Nashville, move to Nashville. You'll feel very expanded and abundant there. If your Pluto line goes somewhere, you might have, some power and authority troubles in that area of the planet. I'm just sort of being general in my description, right? So the question is, do I find value in astrocartography? Well, I would never choose a place to live based on my astrocartography. But if I were moving someplace, I might look at the astrocartography to just get a sense of what to expect in that area. Anytime somebody speaks about wanting to relocate in a session, that's a good reason to call up the astrocartography and talk about the expectable energy in a geographical location based on that technique in astrology. Now, something I would never, ever do is either pick or help someone pick by looking at the astrocartography. I always use it as a validation of a choice that's being made by the client. So I'm never going to sit with a client and they say, where should I move? And it's like, oh, Nashville, Jupiter line, go there. Like, that sounds ridiculous to me. But if you come to me and say, I'm thinking about Nashville, but also the Northwest, I might look at both that sort of in the southern United States and the Northwest of the United States and talk about what energy you might expect if you were dwelling in that place on Earth. Well, we are in the new moon in Cancer, kids, right here, right now, today. If you're listening to this podcast when it first comes out, we're in the new moon. It's exact in Cancer at 24 degrees at around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time today, Monday, 17th of July. So we're in the Cancer mansion, which means we are focused on the rest, the restoration, the preparation, the behind the scenes, the precursor, the birthing, sensibility where we gestate. That's all Cancer sensibilities. Very much about self-care and honoring the deepest emotional needs that we have. We're just coming out of the full moon in Capricorn, where the sun's in Cancer and the moon's in Capricorn, where this is very easy to understand what the Cancer archetype represents, because in Cancer sun, we're thinking about, what do we need to care for ourselves? And in the Capricorn full moon, we're thinking about the mountain we want to climb up the, top of for our benefit. We happen to be moving through a period of time where the new moon will follow the full moon sun placement, right? In other words, we have a new moon in Cancer, and in, 7 days' time, the moon will move into Leo, and so our full moon is in Aquarius. It's not neat and clean right now because the lunations start the lunar cycle towards the end degrees of the sign. In this case, it's 24 degrees of Cancer, which means the full moon in this lunar cycle will have the solar mansion in a different sign than the new moon that kicks it off. And yet we're still in Cancer sensibility for this intention setting moment. So it's all about what do you need in the deepest, most intimate parts of you, and set those intentions to care for self and understand your need for care and restoration, so that when the energy comes along to, climb the mountain, you've got self-care in the bag. Now, there's something happening towards the end of this week on Thursday and Friday that is so big and epic that will connect to this lunar cycle and the new moon, because the new moon is opposing Pluto. I want to describe the humongous Cardinal Grand Cross that's peaking with Pluto and the nodes changing signs this Thursday and Friday, because we're setting an intention today with this new moon at a moment when the nodes are changing signs, which is today. Pluto and the nodes are squaring, which is later in the week, and the sun is squaring Pluto starting today with this new moon. So there's this humongous pattern in the sky building that has to do with this new moon, but I want to go into that topic as a kind of fresh teaching. So if you didn't listen to last week's podcast, kids, listen to it, because I talk all about the nodes of the moon and how they operate, in anticipation of understanding that this week the nodes of the moon do the sign change that I talked about last week. And that day is, in fact, today. Today is the day the North Node moves from the 0 degree of Taurus to the 30th degree of Aries, and the South Node moves from the 0 degree of Scorpio to the 30th degree of Libra, because the nodes move backwards. Pluto is at the 30th degree of Capricorn. And while the new moon today is at 24 degrees of Cancer, in a couple of days, the Cancer sun will be exactly at the 30th degree of Cancer. And that puts Thursday and Friday in this wild sort of position of having a cardinal grand cross in anaretic geometry. So let's break that down so you guys know what I'm talking about. First, let's talk about the anaretic degree, A-N-A-R-E-T-I-C. Anaretic degree simply means the final degree. Every mansion in astrology is 30 degrees wide. In fact, that's the perfection of the circle, which is a 360-degree circle divided into 12 equal swaths of 30. The sun moves exactly 30 degrees through each sign, and that's the mansion. So every planet placement in astrology we describe as a certain degree point in a certain sign. The 30th degree, when any planet moves to 29 degrees and any X number of minutes of the sign that it's in, it is at the 30th degree. Sometimes people get confused about this because they think, well, it's the 29th degree. It's like, no, this is just semantics, kids. Like, I'm 59 right now. I turned 60 on August 23rd. So I'm already in my 60th year. And when I turn 60 on August 23rd, I will be in my 61st year. So this ain't astrology, kids. This is semantics. But understand, when I talk about the anaretic degree or the 30th degree, that means the placement is at 29 plus. So why that's important is because of adding a sense of growth and evolution to the movement of math. So a planet moving through 30 degrees, that's the math. It's going to start at 0, finish at 30, then it's done. But the idea of evolution through a sign says that the planet moving through a sign is gathering wisdom and data and information. And when it gets to that final degree, it's no longer energetically in consideration of where we're going next, but it's as if it turns around and says, have I covered everything in this mansion? Have I mastered this mansion? Am I free and ready to go and move on? In fact, if we continue that anthropomorphization, sometimes what I will say is like if a planet changes signs but then retrogrades back into the previous sign, it's as if to say, I'm not quite ready. Right? So Pluto moved from Capricorn into Aquarius and then turned around and said, oh, we ain't done with the Capricorn mansion and all the death rebirth I got to bring to it, so I'm going to backtrack into Capricorn again. And he's hovering at this anaretic degree. Like he's not going to move any earlier into Capricorn. He's holding the 30th degree of Capricorn so that we can think of Pluto right now, the planet of death and rebirth, in the sign of social structures, Capricorn. So Pluto at this 30th anaretic degree of Capricorn that invented social structures is in deep earnestness around death rebirthing those structures because it has the whole wisdom of the entire Capricorn archetype in it because of this 30th degree placement. So like this new moon has the sun and the moon opposing Pluto, but it's not exact. You know, the moon and the sun are at 24. It's 6 degrees off. But at the end of the week, the Cancer sun will be at the mastery anaretic degree of Cancer, which means our conscious awareness is going to be all wrapped up in the masterful sense of self-care, restoration, and preparation needed before movement out into the world. So right there, you've got an opposition of great note, because conscious awareness and the shadow in an opposition, that's intense no matter how you slice it. The sun creates shadow. Like literally, kids, when the sun's shining down, the shadow is cast. So if Pluto creates the shadow and the sun is the light that forms the shadow, anytime the sun and Pluto oppose, we're in an interesting confrontation that we cannot miss. You cannot argue with an opposition. Something's going to happen. Between our conscious awareness, steeped in self-care, protection, inhibition, being gentle and kind to self, and the idea of death, rebirth, and epic change. And at a moment when the change on the planet is so wild, this particular opposition is going to hold more weight than usual.
Yeah, this sounds, I don't know, it sounds so interesting, like introspective and also hopeful.
Ooh, I like that you're hearing some hopefulness in there. I hope I don't ruin the hope when I expand the picture, which I'm about to do, is because the nodes of the moon are turning today into their next sign, but because they move backwards, they start at the anaretic mastery degree. So if the North Node is our future and the way the collective is moving together towards a joined end, we are all being pushed this week to start a kind of a 1.5-year process, pushed to move out into the world more powerfully. Aries, first fire, cardinal sign, is about movement, starting up, getting moving. That's where the North Node is moving into today. And so you've got a point that represents the collective and our dharmic future at the anaretic degree of Leo, and therefore its opposite point, the South Node, of what we're moving away from and what we're charged to do our most sort of powerful releasing is towards Libra, which means we want to move away from passivity, keeping the peace at all costs, staying small because you don't have the courage to fire up. Libra says, oh, balance, harmony, just sit on the couch and eat your bonbons, where Aries says, get the fuck out of here and start moving. Right? So if we're moving away from Libra and towards Aries, in this dynamic that I'm describing, we're moving away from non-action and into action. But remember, all 4 of these points are exactly at the 30th degree of each sign this Thursday and Friday. So you've got this epic T-square between our past and our future and our preparation, Cancer, and the change, transformation, death, rebirth required at this time to move powerfully in the ways that I'm describing. So, let me speak about this in 2 ways: the personal and the transpersonal or collective. On the personal level, this T-square connected to the beginning of a lunar cycle says that this lunar cycle means business. You're going to set intentions that honor what you need behind the scenes. But make no mistake about it, the setup in the solar system isn't saying stay home and self-care. The system is saying learn and know self-care, kids, because we're being shot out of the fucking cannon and there is no holding back from this point on. Things are charged up and moving fast, and they're not going to slow down. So, again, back to the personal level. Be in consideration, especially today, of what it is you know that you need inside your own life that would satisfy the care your body needs in order to feel safe and ready, and make sure that that's connected to the movement you're up to. Because this new moon and this whole lunar cycle has a kind of energetic propulsion built into it because it's expressing itself. The new moon, intention setting moment, is expressing itself at a moment when it's forming a cardinal grand cross. Cardinal signs start things up. That's the meaning of that dignity. Cardinal signs are the beginning of all the seasons: Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. When the sun moves into those signs, we have a begin again seasonality moment. And so I'm saying that so that you guys understand. Cardinal signs mean movement. A new moon means movement. But this is a new moon that has all sorts of conflict built into it because of these squares. So if we're setting a new moon and it squares the North Node, that's like I'm setting intentions to move towards the future, but I'm accepting of the conflicts that might come to push me forward because I know who I am. I'm preparing myself in the world of self-care to move powerfully. The new moon squaring the South Node says, I equally recognize I might have to let some shit go in order to move as fast and furiously as my world is going to demand of me. And then the opposition to Pluto just says, I'm willing to look under the hood at any shadowy, fearful limitation consciousness that might be there in my psyche that would cause inhibition to forward movement, and understand that on some level, this lunar cycle that is all about self-care and preparation is really helping you like launch the rocket of your goals and ambitions. Now, there's another way to perceive this moment that is more about the bigger movements of the collective consciousness of the entire planet. So now we're talking about all of the political mishigas in all of the countries where it's all brewing, including the United States.
Is Mishigas bad things?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, mishigas is Yiddish for like crazy stuff.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So, like, if you want to know what I'm talking about, turn on the news for 10 or 15 minutes, and we're talking about all of the challenges domestically, foreign nations, wars. The breakdowns here in our country are just sort of epic right now. And anything that's happening collectively where we're all sharing the same kind of experience, that involves the nodes. So if we can look out at the world right now and say, holy moly, the world has gone mad, this is a moment of reckoning, of profound death, rebirth level changes on the planet that impact the direction that we're moving in collectively. So when I'm saying this, I'm not talking about the month of July. I'm not even really talking about 2023. I'm talking about like the end of the 20th century into the beginning of the 21st, like 70 years ago and 40 years hence. This is the turning point moment. And when I'm old and gray, or I should say older and grayer, and in my dotage, I assure you, I will be pointing back to this astrological moment when the planet Pluto hit the last degree of Aquarius and moved through a cardinal T-square with the nodes. That alone is enough to say that the breakdowns of the last decade or two and whatever changes come in the decade or two ahead have a peak right here, right now. Now, what you do with this, I don't know that I can help you with that. I find this comforting. But I'm also not terrified of the world going mad or the breakdowns that are to come. I occasionally get, worried or nervous, or I'm a human being. I'm just another bozo on the bus on the planet. I don't pretend to be loftier than I am. But I basically live in a kind of resilience-oriented hopefulness that we got this, that we have the ability to move through the changes that are happening. And there's the hope, Zoe.
Yeah.
The hope is it will get better, because that's not going to happen. It is not getting better, kids. And please don't DM me on social media like, when's it going to get easier? It's like when you're dead. It's our charge, though, to meet it, to hold it, and to
Yes.
carry us all through it. And I believe in that fully.
Sure. Yeah.
And as long as the climate doesn't take us out with an extinction event in 100 or 200 years, I think technology will save us. The age of Aquarius is upon us. This, to me, is a gear shift moment that declares fully and unequivocally we are in the new age. Remember, Pluto is dancing back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius. His entrance, exit, and final entrance next year, to me, that's the launch party. Or maybe this is the launch party. And we're in the soft launch, and the firm launch is, 2025 when the little ingress completes itself and Pluto is in Aquarius, without backtracking into Capricorn. At any rate, to wrap all of this up, it's a powerful new moon moment to set incredible intentions that say, I honor my self-care, but I'm ready to get moving. And it's an epic turning point on the planet for the future of the human race and where we're going next. And while it is frightening, to say the least, you will find hope here, kids. So keep coming in this direction, and I'll give you the best hope I can muster. All right, it's a big week for Venus, for feelings, for relationship issues, and all things retrograde cycle-y. In fact, today, the 17th, is the day that Venus gets to 28 degrees of Leo. And this is the degree point at which she will turn around, which she does on Sunday. So the actual backward motion doesn't start until Sunday, about a week from now. But what happens this week, as of today, is she stops moving. She will essentially be at this same degree point, 28 degrees of Leo, for about 11 days. Turns around in 6, and then stays there for another 5 backward moving, and then she'll pick up speed a little bit as she goes. So when a planet is stationing like this, it increases its power and objectivity and impact. So if Venus is typically swooping by and passing through a degree a day, essentially, we might feel that as moods in our emotional body or particular connections that are either supportive or not supportive in our intimacy life, or challenges or movement with our finances, all the things that Venus rules. But if she ain't moving, then our emotional body ain't moving also. So I think you can expect greater emotionality this week, more sensitivity, more impact from moments when relationships are challenging or your finances frighten you. That's likely and possible all week long because the planet that rules our emotional body is standing still in the sky. When we gather next week, kids, Venus will have just turned around, and we'll do a whole sort of recap of the whole Venus retrograde cycle. But just understand that as we move through this week, there are no triple transits in the cycle to pay attention to. So there's nothing to, get your journals out and document outside of your own natural emotional squeezes that come up this week while she's not moving are designed to help you learn a little bit about emotional patterns that might be underneath the surface of your conscious awareness that are rumbling. And so as she slows down, those issues might pop a little this week. And those issues will be part of the relationship dynamic you might be asked to take a look at when she turns around on Monday. Meanwhile, have at this week, set powerful intentions, expect a little bit of extra emotionality, And understand that we move mansions over the weekend too. We move into the Leo mansion. So when we meet
Oh.
next week, I'll start talking about that shift and change. Meanwhile, have at it, kids.
Did you know that Michael has a daily astro alert? If you enjoy hearing the weekly astrology, you might like knowing more about each day. When you subscribe for the daily astro alerts, you'll get an in-depth explanation of the day's astrology sent right to your email. Subscriptions are only $10 a month, or you can purchase the yearly subscription at the reduced price of $100. To subscribe, head over to michaellennox.com. All right, it's dream segment time. Every week, Dr. Michael will interpret dreams that are sent in via email or take a live caller. If you would like your dream interpreted on the podcast, you can go ahead and email us at dreams@michaellennox.com. Hopefully your dream will make it onto the show.
This week we have an email in dream from Mary, and I'll just hop right into the dream. I'm in a room, and I don't know where, standing in front of a couch. There is a woman on the other side of the couch. I don't know or recognize her at all. She's a very small baby in her arms, practically a newborn. She puts this baby on the couch over the back of the couch, so it's actually placed on its head and rolls over, and it's in a really awkward position. I quickly scoop up the baby in my arms as I feel this woman does not care for the child. And then I realize the baby girl is actually me. I also can see that it has some eye infection in one eye, so I get a cloth and clean both eyes with a solution to heal and clear it away. Many thanks, Mary.
Well, I love when a dreamer gives the idea that the figure in the dream might be them. It's like Mary did half my job for me. By recognizing in the dream that this newborn infant is an aspect of Mary, then we're already in the bulk of what this dream is meaning on some level, because there's a new idea, brand new idea, that Mary's being shown. So the woman in the dream who has the baby at first has got to represent something about self-care. That's an old idea that Mary declares she ain't doing it right. Right? The child is not protected when placed upside down on the couch. And not for nothing, couches are not a symbol of dynamic movement. They're a symbol of the opposite of that. You can have rest as a symbol of a couch because we relax on a couch. But we also have phrases like couch potato that imply that sitting on the couch in rest can also go so far as to be a defense against action we might be taking. And when we've just been talking about action and self-care from the astrology, I kind of love how this is a dream about self-care on some level. Mary is given a new idea of how to care for the most innocent and vulnerable parts of her, like the inner child. Only it's a new idea. The inner child is a newborn. And the woman, I think, is Mary's old version of caring for self that clearly was a little upside down, wasn't exactly powerful and proper. She puts the baby on the couch upside down. So this recognition that Mary is having in the dream that this woman is not caring for the child in the way that this child needs to be cared for, and in the reaching to take the child and sort of experience this integration of Mary with an inner child aspect, she recognizes it's me. That's powerful in and of itself. Like if that were all that Mary said, this would be an epic dream of recognizing that her own soulful psyche is saying there's a new way of self-care and you already have it. It's not like the dream isn't saying you don't know it. The dream is actually showing Mary that the birthing of the new way is full and complete. There she is. And because of the old ways of not enough self-care, Mary hasn't been able to perceive her life in the manner that may be available to her. If she's perceiving her life as less abundant and powerful and yummy, because this new inner child aspect she's discovered has an infection in her eye. She cannot see. And so this self-care, this new way of caring for self that I think the dream is describing plays itself out when Mary takes care of the infection in the eye of the newborn child that she recognizes is her. But I'll repeat this thing that's most important. Mary, if you're listening, because the child is newborn, this dream is reflecting very new ideas about caring for yourself and seeing the world as it is more clearly and powerfully, whatever that might mean to you.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. Head on over to michaellennox.com for information on astrology readings, the daily Astro Alert subscription, upcoming classes, and to join the mailing list.